Hey guys, tonight's story is a little different. It's not about a long war fought in a foreign land or a hero's welcome home. It's about the quiet kind of war, the kind that starts with an email. No gunfire. No explosions. Just one message that cracks your life open like a shell. My name is Ethan Graves, I'm 36 years old, and I've been in the U.S. Army for over 12 years. I was a logistics and operations chief, mostly stationed between Iraq and Kuwait for the last stretch. I was on my final deployment when this all began. At that point, I thought I was returning home to a life we built together, and the beginning of our next chapter. But what I got instead was betrayal. The kind you don't see coming until it's already eating through everything you thought was solid. It happened on a Thursday morning. I still remember the heat rising off the tarmac like a ghost. I had just finished inspecting a delayed fuel convoy when my commanding officer called me into his tent, handed me a satellite-linked tablet, and said, "You've got a flagged message marked urgent." I thought maybe it was my wife, Maya. Maybe something had happened back home. Something had happened. The email was short. Brutally so. "Ethan, I've filed for divorce. I've moved out, and I've taken what was mine. I'm sorry it had to be this way, but I've made up my mind. Please don't try to contact me." I read it 3 times. Each word stung harder than the last. No warning. No conversation. No explanation. Just an email ending everything. And then I logged into our bank account. $0. She'd emptied every account, checking, savings, even the small emergency fund I kept for my return. Over $42,000 gone. No trace. Not even a receipt left behind. I wasn't angry yet. Not right away. What I felt first was blankness. That weird, metallic kind of stillness your brain gives you when it's too stunned to react. Then I scrolled down and saw the final line of her message. "Please don't make this dramatic." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "We need to talk." Just don't be dramatic. Like leaving your husband overseas and draining his entire life savings was an appointment reschedule. I remember stepping outside the tent into the open desert heat. The wind stung my eyes, or maybe it was just shock. I stood there under a sun that hadn't moved in hours, listening to generators hum and distant trucks roll by. Everything around me was normal. My world? Anything but. You don't spend over a decade wearing the uniform, building something brick by brick, only to have it torn apart by someone who once promised you forever via email. I hadn't seen it coming. And maybe that was the hardest part. Maya had always been distant when I deployed, sure. But she'd still texted good mornings. Sent the occasional video update of the dog. Told me she missed me. Just 5 days earlier, she had said she was excited to repaint the guest bedroom, and that she couldn't wait for me to be home. Now she was gone. And she took everything with her. But that was just the surface. Underneath the hurt was something colder. Something sharper. A memory. Maya and I had met during one of my first stateside assignments in Texas. She was doing freelance graphic design, trying to start her own studio. When we met, she had more debt than furniture and told me she was drowning in interest rates. I helped her. Paid off her credit cards. Helped her consolidate her student loans. Co-signed on her car when no one else would. And I never asked for anything back. Even when she stopped working full-time and told me she wanted to focus on herself. Even when I deployed again, and half of my paycheck vanished into home expenses I never saw. Even when she bought herself a $1,300 coffee machine and told me it was an investment in mental health. I backed her. Always. And in return, I got a goodbye email and a clean out account. But I didn't call her. I didn't respond. Because that's what people like Maya expect. that you'll rage, that you'll beg, that you'll make noise. But I'd been trained for long games, for silence, for calculated patience. So I took inventory of everything she overlooked in her sprint for freedom. The mortgage was still in both our names. Her laptop, set up by me with remote admin access, still live. Our security system, linked to an email she forgot I owned. And in her haste, she forgot the first rule of deceit: never betray someone who knows how you think. I didn't panic. I got strategic. Because if she wanted freedom, I was going to give it to her in full. And I was going to make sure she paid exactly what it cost. But before we go deeper into how this all unraveled, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from tonight? Have you ever trusted someone so deeply that when they cut you loose, it felt like you couldn't breathe? So, before you get pulled in, take a second to like this video and subscribe, but only if you actually believe that betrayal always comes back around. Now sit back, let the room go quiet, and let me tell you how it really went down. Before things fell apart, Maya used to call me her anchor. She'd say it with a grin, usually after doing something impulsive like dyeing her hair midnight blue or trying to start a candle-making side hustle. "You keep me grounded," she'd whisper, snuggling into my chest like I was the only calm thing in a chaotic world. I believed her. Back then, I wanted to. That was our dynamic. I was the planner, the soldier, the one who could live out of a duffel bag and run on 4 hours of sleep. She was the dreamer, the creative spark, the one who said things like, "I just need space to bloom." I gave her space. A whole damn garden. And when she wilted under her own weight, I propped her back up every time. Maya came into my life fast. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue outside Fort Hood. She wore a thrift store jacket covered in enamel pins, said she didn't believe in labels, and told me most men bored her by the second date. I told her I wasn't most men. She laughed. Gave me her number. The rest unfolded quickly. She moved in after 3 months. Married after 9. Some said we rushed it, but when you're deploying again in under a year, you don't always have the luxury of pacing life like a romance novel. The first 2 years were good. I won't rewrite history. We laughed a lot, even when money was tight. Maya was supportive when I got promoted, threw me a surprise party before I shipped out again, cried real tears at the airport. But something shifted during my second deployment. She stopped sending letters. Stopped asking about my missions. Started talking more about her energy alignment coach than her freelance clients. I chalked it up to loneliness. After all, being a military spouse isn't easy. You live in half rooms, half cities, with your life packed into storage bins and your partner constantly halfway across the world. I tried to make it easier. I gave her full access to everything: our accounts, the home, my benefits. She said she appreciated the trust. She said I made her feel safe. But safety, it turns out, can be suffocating for someone who confuses love with limitation. During my final 2 deployments, I noticed the distance growing wider. She stopped calling altogether during the last one. Blamed the time difference. Told me she was just off the grid a bit more, for clarity and inner work. Inner work, it seems, was code for removal of guilt. Still, I sent money home. Still, I paid off her second car after the first one got repossessed. Still, I covered therapy sessions, spa packages, Reiki classes, things I thought were helping her stay afloat. But now, with everything stripped bare, I could see the truth. Maya hadn't just grown distant, she had been strategic. She'd been preparing her exit for longer than I wanted to admit. And she made sure I wouldn't be around to stop her. That's what stung the most, not just the betrayal, but the efficiency of it. She waited until I was halfway across the world, with no immediate way to respond, with no physical access to our shared assets, with limited legal reach. She knew how to time the strike. And she knew I'd trained myself to stay calm under pressure. What she didn't count on was that I don't just survive under pressure, I operate best in it. Back home, friends started reaching out. Quiet messages from people I hadn't heard from in months. "Hey man, sorry to hear about you and Maya." I didn't want to get in the middle. I thought it was weird when she stopped showing up to the family cookouts. "There's been someone new with her lately, don't know if it's serious," but they looked close. Each message was a breadcrumb, and I collected them with the precision of a field op. I didn't ask questions. I didn't tip my hand. But with every quiet ping, a new piece of the puzzle fell into place. Then came the final detail that tied it all together. Her. Just a friend. A guy named Sean. He used to comment on her Instagram posts about alignment and freedom through discomfort. A yoga instructor. Tan, flexy, with a jawline that looked carved out of a protein bar commercial. She told me he was part of her healing circle. Apparently, healing meant moving in while your husband was overseas and draining his accounts dry. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was surgical. And I realized then, Maya wasn't lost. She was liberated from responsibility, from commitment, from me. But she'd made one fatal mistake. She'd underestimated the man she trained herself to forget. So I started building a timeline. Messages. Dates. Bank withdrawals. Logins from devices I still had admin access to. And quietly, without making a sound, I began collecting every thread of the life she tried to hide from me. Because revenge isn't always rage. Sometimes it's just recon. And I had years of discipline behind me. When I finally stepped off that plane and back onto American soil, I wasn't the man Maya remembered. I wasn't smiling. I wasn't calling her name. I didn't have flowers in hand or relief in my eyes. I was quiet. Focused. Different. I'd spent the entire flight home reviewing the details. I'd gathered every payment she made from our joint account, every new delivery logged at the house, every post on social media where her face softened around someone who wasn't me. Maya didn't just move on, she replaced me before the goodbye ever hit send. The military dropped me off at base, but I didn't go straight home. I got a rental car, stopped for coffee, and drove the long way back, windows down, letting the cold wind slap me awake. I needed to feel every inch of this return. By the time I pulled into the driveway, it was just past midnight. The porch light was on automatic timer, not sentiment. My name was still on the deed. Still on the utilities. Still on everything that made this house ours. Except it wasn't ours anymore. Through the front window, I could see it. The furniture had changed. New couch. New rugs. The wall art Maya used to hate was gone. In its place were abstract canvases and Himalayan salt lamps. There was even a yoga mat rolled out in the living room like some kind of calling card. I didn't knock. I didn't want a confrontation. I wasn't there to be seen. I was there to observe. I parked 3 blocks away and walked back under cover of shadows. A habit from years of recon missions. My boots barely made a sound. A car I didn't recognize was in the driveway, a black hybrid with a bumper sticker that said, "Choose peace." I almost laughed. So I left. Returned the next day during daylight hours officially. The locks had been changed. She never even told me. Never offered me my things. Never asked what I'd want to keep. Legally, that was a problem for her, not me. The property was still jointly owned. So I filed the appropriate notice, made contact with a real estate attorney, and started the slow, deliberate process of reclaiming what was rightfully mine. But this wasn't just about property. It was about the lies that lived in the walls. The neighbors didn't say much, just awkward nods, side glances. I saw the look in their eyes. They knew. People talk, especially in quiet cul-de-sacs. They'd seen her new friend coming and going. Saw me pulling bags during deployments, her watering plants like nothing was missing. One neighbor, a retired Navy guy, muttered to me as I passed his gate, "You deserve better, brother." I didn't answer. I just nodded. Because the words I had? They weren't ready yet. I was still arranging them. Still sharpening them like knives in a drawer. Back at my temporary apartment, I turned my attention inward. I sorted through emails, calendar backups, delivery receipts. She had everything from custom throw pillows to a new mattress delivered within weeks of my departure. One of the credit cards I forgot to cancel showed a $7,200 charge for a couple's retreat in Sedona. The guest was listed under the name Sean B. She'd taken the man she cheated with on a vacation using my money. And she didn't even try to hide it. That's when something shifted inside me. Not rage. Not heartbreak. Focus. She had planned this life. Curated it. Cushioned it with my sacrifice. But while she was manifesting freedom, I was building something else, a legal map. I reached out to a JAG officer I'd worked with back in Germany. Explained the situation. Asked what rights I still had as a service member returning home to a blindside divorce and emptied accounts. He gave me exactly what I needed, clarity and jurisdiction. Turns out, Maya made a big mistake. She filed the divorce in a state that recognizes spousal abandonment of military personnel as grounds for an unfavorable ruling in asset distribution. Her timing while I was deployed looked particularly opportunistic to a judge. And it would only look worse once I showed the digital trail. I compiled it all. Every charge. Every email. Every time-stamped conversation where she played the doting wife to my face and made travel plans with Sean 2 tabs over. She'd built her new world with my money. Now I was going to watch it collapse under the weight of her own timeline. But I wouldn't go loud. Not yet. People like Maya hate silence more than shouting. Because silence makes them wonder how much you know and what you're about to do with it. So I stayed quiet. I let her feel safe. I let her think I'd gone numb. And all the while, I tightened the net. Because she didn't just walk away from me. She walked into the exact storm she thought she was escaping. I don't believe in fate. I believe in systems. In cause and effect. In routines and patterns. In reading the signals people leave behind when they think no one's watching. Maya was one of those people. She didn't cover her tracks because she didn't think she needed to. She thought I was locked down across the ocean, too distracted by service to notice the mess she made in my absence. She believed in moving on, but not in consequences. And now, it was time to follow the trail. I started with the basics: bank statements, IP logs, social media check-ins. I still had remote access to her laptop through an admin program I'd installed years ago, something she must have forgotten. From there, it was like opening a window into her second life. There were photos, hundreds of them. Most were harmless, but some told the story plain as day. Maya and Sean in a rented cabin in Asheville. Matching bracelets. Her wearing his hoodie. Him standing barefoot in the kitchen I paid for, flipping pancakes like he owned the place. They looked domestic. Comfortable. Like a couple who'd been together longer than a few stolen months. The oldest photo dated back almost 9 months before she filed for divorce. 9 months. That meant they were involved before my last deployment. She'd hugged me at the airport and cried into my shoulder while another man waited for her to come home. That was betrayal with premeditation. But the more damning evidence wasn't visual, it was financial. She'd been quietly transferring money to a separate account for over a year. Small amounts at first. Then larger withdrawals labeled as business investments, wellness retreats, and Studio rent. There was no studio. There was no business. There was just Sean. The account was in her name, but the IP address used to access it was tied to a co-working space where Sean taught private yoga sessions. A space that I had unknowingly helped her lease during tax season under the guise of a long-term creative outlet. She played the long game. I'll give her that. But she made it personal when she turned my kindness into leverage. I compiled everything into a file: dates, amounts, screenshots, bank traces. I had friends from Intel backgrounds double-check my sourcing to keep it admissible. This wasn't just about revenge. This was about precision. With everything in hand, I consulted with my attorney, a seasoned woman who'd handled military divorce cases for over 2 decades. Her reaction when she saw the documentation? She smiled. "Ethan," she said, "you're about to turn this into the cleanest dismantling I've ever filed." We filed a motion to contest the division of assets. Included the deployment clause. Highlighted the financial deception, the misuse of shared funds, and most importantly the abandonment and infidelity during active military service. Judges don't look kindly on that. Especially not when it's backed with undeniable proof. But I wasn't done. One evening, I logged into our shared cloud storage, just to see if she'd left anything behind. She had. An open draft of an email to her friend titled, "My Exit Strategy." She wrote about how she deserved more, how I was never around, and how Sean gets her in ways I never could. But one line sealed it. "I just have to make sure Ethan doesn't come back early, or everything falls apart." Everything falls apart. That's when I knew this wasn't just a betrayal. This was a heist. She'd set it up like a job. Waited until the timing was perfect. Walked away with the bag. But she forgot that real soldiers don't fall apart. We reorganize. I sent the draft to my lawyer. It was the final nail. Then came the part one enjoyed most, reclaiming my presence. I returned to the house with a sheriff's deputy. Not dramatic, not loud, just legal. She wasn't home, but Sean was. He opened the door shirtless, blinking at the badge and the documents in hand. I said nothing. Just walked past him and started boxing up everything that was mine. Not the petty things. Not the couch or the silverware. But the deed. The titles. The electronics she never touched. The backup drives with years of data she didn't understand. All mine. All documented. The look on his face? That dazed confusion when someone realizes their winning streak just hit a wall? Priceless. He tried to talk. I shut it down with a glance. "Not your house," I said. "Not your life. Not your future. Not anymore." When Maya came back that night, the lights were off. The boxes were gone. The locks had been legally changed again under joint ownership and court petition. And taped to the door was a copy of our legal filing. With one line highlighted. Respondent to appear with full disclosure of assets and relationships active during military deployment. She never saw it coming. Because people like her think they write the ending. But they forget who actually survives the middle. I didn't show up to court in uniform. I wanted no theatrics. No symbols. No camouflage that might suggest I needed sympathy. I didn't want to be seen as a soldier trying to win a moral war. I wanted to be seen as a man, betrayed, wronged, and prepared. I wore a charcoal gray suit. No tie. Just a clean white shirt, my boots polished, and the weight of everything she thought I hadn't noticed tucked into a black folder under my arm. Maya arrived 10 minutes late. She swept in like she was attending a business meeting, heels, tailored blazer, a fake calm in her walk. She tried to catch my eye. I didn't give her the satisfaction. I looked past her like she was part of the decor. Her expression wavered when she saw Maya turning the way she stood, how confidently she greeted the clerk. I think that's when Maya realized this wasn't going to be as easy as she'd imagined. This wasn't just a formality. This was a reckoning. We began with the basics: timeline, accounts, documentation. Maya's lawyer, a sharp guy who probably believed he was defending a confused wife, tried to steer the conversation toward emotional strain, distance, how I'd been gone too much. He dropped words like disconnection and emotional void. But then my lawyer spoke. She laid it all out date by date, charge by charge, from the first unauthorized withdrawal to the retreat she attended with Sean using my deployment pay. The judge's brow twitched slightly when we introduced the exit strategy email. Maya's attorney asked for it to be dismissed as personal venting. But when my lawyer pulled up a follow-up message where Maya bragged to her friend about how everything is almost in place, and he'll never see it coming, even the bailiff shifted in his seat. There was no hiding now. The judge leaned back in his chair and looked at Maya. "Is this your writing?" She nodded, then whispered, "I was under a lot of pressure." Pressure. Like I wasn't overseas dodging heat and sandstorms, counting down the days until I could return to a home she'd emptied behind my back. Then the judge turned to me. "Mr. Graves, do you have anything you wish to say?" I stood, looked Maya in the eye just once. "Your Honor," I said, "this wasn't a bad marriage. This was a quiet setup. I spent years making sacrifices I never asked to be repaid for. I was loyal while she planned my replacement. I don't need punishment. I don't even need revenge. I just want what's fair, and I want it clean." That was all. The judge thanked me and turned back to his papers. The ruling came faster than anyone expected. I was granted full ownership of the home. Maya was ordered to vacate within 30 days. I retained my retirement accounts, military pension, and vehicle. She was denied spousal support due to willful abandonment and deceptive conduct. On top of that, she had to repay a portion of the joint funds she had funneled away plus half my legal fees. The look on her face. It wasn't sadness. It was shock. She truly believed she would walk away untouched. Maybe even rewarded. She thought the story she told herself about being unfulfilled, unsupported would somehow cancel out everything she did. But the truth doesn't disappear just because it makes you uncomfortable. And the truth was now printed in court records. She tried calling once. Left a voicemail. "Ethan, this got out of hand. I never wanted it to be like this. Can we talk? Please, just once." I listened to it in the dark, sitting on the floor of my new place, boxes still unopened, silence everywhere. I didn't respond. What was left to say? She'd made her choices. She'd wanted freedom. Now she had it complete, with rent, bills, reputation damage, and no safety net to land on. Sean? He stuck around for a little while, from what I heard. But a month after the ruling, he ghosted her. Deleted his socials. Packed up his yoga mat and his healing crystals and disappeared. Maybe she thought he'd be her next anchor. But Sean wasn't an anchor. He was a raft with a hole in it. And she jumped ship for him. As for May, moved on. Not in the dramatic, new girlfriend, new lease on life way. Just in the quiet kind of way that sticks. I found a property upstate, a small cabin, tucked in the trees. I split my time consulting for veteran transition programs and working with legal aid for servicemen going through divorce. It was there, surrounded by pine and stillness, that I started sharing my story. One upload. Then another. Then dozens more. People listened. Not for entertainment. Not for drama. But because someone was finally saying what they'd all been through in silence. Real stories. Real consequences. Real justice. Maya never reached out again. But I know she's seen the videos. The emails started coming in, old mutual friends, former clients of hers, even anonymous comments from accounts that read too personal to be strangers. She knows. Every calm word, every composed narration, every line where the pain is cut clean with precision. She knows it's about her. And that, perhaps, is the sharpest part of all. Not that I destroyed her life, but that I let the truth speak for itself. And it did. Loudly. The last time I saw Maya was in the parking lot of a grocery store 6 months after the court order made our separation official, and long after I had stopped thinking about her every day. It was early 7:15 in the morning, maybe. The kind of cold where your breath hangs in front of you for just a second too long. I'd stopped to grab coffee beans, a new wrench, and a can of wood sealant for the porch. It was a regular day. Nothing dramatic. Nothing worth remembering until she appeared. She was parked 2 aisles down. Her trunk open, reusable bag in one hand, struggling with a frozen gallon of milk in the other. She didn't see me at first. But I saw her. And what struck me wasn't anger, or heartbreak, or even resentment. It was how small she looked. Not physically, though. She did seem thinner, drawn, but spiritually, emotionally shriveled. Her coat didn't fit right. Her boots were the cheap kind she used to mock. Her hair was unbrushed at the back, like she just rolled out of someone else's guest room. Then she looked up, saw me, and froze. For a moment, we just stood there, two people who once shared everything, now strangers passing in the wind. I didn't wave. I didn't nod. I didn't break stride. I just kept walking right past her, into the store, like she didn't exist. Not because I hated her, but because I'd already buried what we had. And there was no point digging it back up. It took a long time to get to that place. To where her presence felt like background noise, not a wound. Where the sound of her voice in old videos didn't tug at something sharp inside me. Where I could see her and feel nothing but the relief of distance. After court ended and she was legally required to vacate the house, I stayed in that house for a short while. Slept on the floor for the first week, surrounded by cardboard boxes and silence. I thought it would haunt me, her perfume in the curtains, the old calendar she left stuck to the fridge, the chipped ceramic mug with her name painted on it. But no. It faded faster than I expected. Because once the lie is exposed, the illusion collapses with it. I sold the house. Bought a cabin upstate remote, surrounded by trees and silence, with a long gravel driveway that made sure no one ever just dropped by. It was mine. Every beam, every plank, every creak of the floor at night. And in that cabin I rebuilt. Slowly. Intentionally. Mornings were simple. Black coffee on the porch, wrapped in a thermal coat, steam rising like ghosts from the mug. No phone. No headlines. Just air, cold and real. Sometimes I chopped wood for no reason other than the rhythm of it. Other times I wrote. I started with my story not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to let the silence speak. The YouTube channel Real Life Revenge was never meant to be anything more than a small outlet. A digital campfire where others could sit, listen, and maybe feel a little less alone. But it grew. Because truth travels. People found it. Shared it. Commented things like, "This is my life in different clothes." Thank you. I didn't know how much I needed to hear someone say this. I thought I was the only one who stayed quiet when everything fell apart. I never mentioned Maya's name. Never described her face. But she knew. The way the channel described betrayal, silent, strategic, with clean cuts and cold detachment, it was too close for comfort. One day, I got an anonymous message. No profile picture. No context. She watches all of them. She doesn't say it, but I've seen her. She knows it's her. That was enough for me. I didn't need apologies. I didn't need closure. I was the closure. And Sean? He disappeared. Last I heard, he bailed on a retreat they were supposed to co-host in Oregon. Packed up, left the state. Deleted most of his accounts. Maybe the fantasy wore off. Maybe he realized Maya wasn't in love with him, just in love with freedom. Or at least, her version of it, freedom with someone else footing the bill. I used to wonder if they'd lasted. If maybe, despite it all, they found something real in the ashes of what they torched. But I stopped wondering. Because the second you stop keeping score with your past, you win. The real victory isn't taking something from them. It's when they can't take anything else from you. Not your time. Not your peace. Not your name, not your story. And not your future. I still get comments. Still get DMs. Still get quiet thank yous from people in all corners of life, young, old, men, women, people who thought they were the only ones who'd been blindsided while trying to do right. And that's why I keep telling the stories. Not to fan the flames, but to help people survive the burn. I don't know where Maya is now. I don't care. What I do know is this: she tried to rewrite my life with an email. Tried to cut me out of my own story like a scene she didn't want to watch anymore. But I got the last word. Not because I shouted louder, but because I stayed, told the truth, and walked forward while she kept spinning. This was never about revenge. It was about reality. About reclaiming a name. About knowing deep down that while she tried to bury me in silence, I turned it into something that spoke louder than she ever could. There's something sacred about silence when you've earned it. Not the kind that comes from loneliness, but the kind that arrives after the storm passes, when the dust has settled, the shouting has stopped, and all that's left is truth. Cold, clean, unshakable. That's where I live now. Not in rage. Not in the memory of what she did, but in the stillness that followed. Sometimes people write to me, asking what they should do when they'd been betrayed. Should they fight? Expose? Retaliate? I always tell them the same thing. Don't rush. Watch. Betrayal is loud. But justice? Real justice? It's patient. It doesn't need fireworks. It doesn't need a mic drop. It just needs you to outlast the lie. Because in the end, the one who walks away quietly, with their dignity intact, speaks loudest of all. I don't know what you're going through. Maybe it's a partner who left you in the dark. A friend who twisted the knife. A job that discarded you like you were nothing. But here's what I do know. You are not broken. You are becoming. And if you hold steady, if you stay silent just long enough to gather your strength, there will come a day when your story no longer starts with pain. It starts with power. So turn down the noise. Turn up your clarity. And walk forward, not for revenge, not for them. For you. Because some endings don't need closure. They just need a final page.